We are siphoning something from a pre-existing intangible space, an ultimate commitment to negative art. I feel like every musician grows to detest their creation, but it's not in like an active disregard for what that creation is. It's in an eternal chase of betterment to convey the ideas that you've had all along. Hey, I'm Jamie and I sing in Knoll. We're from Tennessee. You know, I feel like back when we did the Knotfest thing, and in general when we were just like touring around that time, maybe like a year and a half ago, a lot of the band and like my work around the band was focused just around like navigating a DIY ethos and building the foundations of the things that we would work on later.
Talk about some of the complexities and most excited parts of being a DIY artist and doing independent tours.
Oh shit. Yeah, dude, I don't know, like working with labels is really cool. We've always been really lucky to like have some of the team at Prosthetic on our side, like Steve and Becky are really good friends of ours. But working independent, I feel like it's just a really good way to kind of get really familiar with all the intimate details of being in a band. Like learning how to press your own records and like figure out jackets and colors and like how to finance shit is like, it gets you, I don't know, I guess it gets you way more involved with what you're doing. You know, I'm not like, every day I wake up and I feel like I'm trying to look for something that I can do for the band, and like having that workload is really nice, and you save a shit ton of money and you get to like, I don't know, just have full control over whatever it is that you want to do in every facet, you know? So I guess like, it's very exciting to me to have grown up in music, you know, where a lot of people will tell you that you need a record label to do like any of this kind of shit, touring or like putting out a record physically, and then being able to do it yourself and like struggling to figure out how to do that shit, and then it comes out and it comes out great. Like that's super rewarding, rather than just like handing your masters off to a label or something and then they do it all for you. You know, you get to see every step of the process, and it's I don't know, it's just way more rewarding that way.
And it was literally like, it was like simple practical shit, like figuring out how to release things without a label, and you know, getting a van, and all of the troubles that come with losing one in the desert, which was just some shit. But you know, you learn how to book tours, you learn how to put out records, and it's not really like, you can always get better at those sorts of things, but I feel like once you have like a network of people that really help you out, there's like, you've got it, you know? And what happened to me and my like work shift within the band kind of transferred from like being a grunt work dude that like built up the network that we would work off of later to just operate within the band. And now I get to focus on the art a lot more, and I guess just kind of like managerial stuff. We don't have a manager, so like we do everything in-house. I write a million emails a day, and yeah, just getting to focus on like making the music, really caring about like the photography, you know, the art image of the band, like outside of the audio, because it's everything that we do. It's a subtractive effort, you know. It's things that have existed before but siphoned into audio, and it's up to us as artists to be the sculptors and to be better at that rather than create something out of thin air, because at least within our realm of music and what we're doing specifically, that's out of the question. We don't do that, and so it's been a thing coming along with like doing these past couple tours. We just got off the road with God is War about a month ago, and that tour was different for us just because we're playing a couple new songs off of a record that we're announcing hopefully like a few weeks after we get home from this tour that we're doing right now with No Mas. And it was like, you know, we ended up, you know, having lights on stage and things like that. It's like old Victorian lamps. Like one of them is actually from like 1887. I got it from like an architectural salvage site. The merch table is like, everything is displayed on antiques. It's like kind of absurdist, but harkens back to like some of my appreciation that I have for like antiquated ideas around philosophy and physics and like a general Knoll is kind of revolving around this infinite interior questioning of knowledge and of knowing. And I just think that like a lot of the ideals held around that like turn of the century time reflect, I guess, just how fragile that like human certainty can be, and really being able to explore those sorts of like older aesthetics, sometimes like occult philosophy aesthetics or old physics aesthetics, has been really, it's been nice for our band, not only because I simply think it looks nice and gives us something to really believe in and attach to, but actually, yeah, it's just that. I feel like the band has evolved sort of from being like dudes playing music. Obviously, this music has always been very dark, and we put everything that we have into it, but now there's so much more space to channel the negativity into, and it is a purely negative art form. Again, very subtractive. I feel like we're kind of, not to get pretentious or anything, but definitely receptors for something. We are siphoning something from a pre-existing intangible space rather than purely creating something out of our minds. And it's just been that, and it's a beautiful, instantly gratifying and powerful thing. And I feel like with this next record that we're going to do and with the tours that we've been doing, it's been that, and it's, again, sickeningly gratifying, and it feels great.
I mean, like, I'm always trying to take, like, things that I truly believe in and, like, maybe personal strife or whatever, and put them into music so that I have something that I can really get behind. But also, anybody who knows my lyrics knows that it can be, like, a little bit verbose and, like, very heavy in metaphor. And, you know, that's in part due to the fact that we're playing, like, such short songs with such intense atmosphere. You know, sometimes you really have to work to kind of find the perfect literature that's representing the feeling that you want to get across, you know. But again, just trying to pack something I believe in and then kind of veil it with metaphor and create imagery with that, you know, something that might make sense with it or draw parallels between meanings is kind of always what I'm going for. And I'm always trying to paint, like, cohesive pictures with records rather than just, like, put out a bunch of songs that all mean something else. You know, there's always a bigger picture even between records.
The next record, I feel like I ended up in a place where I was just kind of sputtering myself with a lot of feelings of impermanence. And I mean, there's many reasons why I ended up at the conclusions that I did for the record and why these things wrote themselves the way that they did. But in general, it's just like a belief of sigil of sorts that the things that you do, you're doing, your speech, your mannerisms, the things that you leave on the world are your existence. It's who you are is where you lay, and the things that you imprint upon the world and other people or beings in general. And I think those things and siphoning negativity into something intangible, it exists forever somewhere, and that's sort of my way of clinging out of reality and sort of battling impermanence. And of course, like a lot of these things are also like a critique of humanity, and like I said earlier, just like the uncertainties of knowledge. You can get into esotericism and whatnot forever, and, you know, hidden truths and whatnot, and how those sorts of concepts make you feel almost as like a sort of intellectual FOMO. And yeah, I guess I am kind of like really obsessed with just humanity's experiences with like antiquated philosophy and just rewriting the book over and over and over again, and how that sort of spells for, I don't know, what might happen to the things that we think of today. Yeah. I think I might have summed up that question. You know, I've had to come a long way. I feel like I'm not really a spiritualist. I would still like consider myself like within the realm of agnosticism. I think really where a lot of these uncertainties lie is from the critique of just like settling yourself on a particular belief. I have a lot of issues with that. Of course, a lot of people do, and then they root themselves into like a very rigid atheism or just Gnostic belief. Yeah, and I'm not really along those lines. Maybe it's a little bit of like a mental self-torture to never resign yourself to believing in anything at all, but I almost feel like that's what the band is about. I haven't actually talked about it before. It's kind of shocking how many times that we've gotten interviewed and nobody has ever asked about like what the name of the band means. But in like a lot of its old etymology, oh, dude, I might fucking scratch that shit. There's a fucking word, etymological. I'm gonna look that shit up. There's a very old etymological root of Knoll that just kind of refers to like an infinite disambiguation or dissection of things. And again, that harkens back to like the infinite interior questioning thing that I was talking about. Just revolving uncertainty, and I feel like anybody as like a human being on this planet is forced to reconsider themselves, their thought form, and their belief over and over and over again. That's how we better ourselves, of course. But it's also how we like. I feel like when I wake up, I go through like a mental checklist of like where the fuck I am and who I am and what I believe. And every day, I feel like for me, but also probably many others, it's just like, how can you really know? But yeah, so that's part of what Knoll refers to. There's also another definition that like strangely fits really well that I didn't stumble upon until recently. But like to Knoll, like the verb is to like ring a funeral bell. I've recently like enjoyed the coinage of calling us like funeral grind. Of course, like we're not playing doom. There's slow parts in the music, but like a lot of the aesthetics, the death worship, things that are referring to like occult philosophy or just antiquated philosophy in general, they circle around funeral aesthetics and things like that. Again, like general death worship, as it should be and as it is. Yeah, and I really appreciate that meaning within the name, and I feel like learning these things almost about like what the band is supposed to mean and what it does mean has given me a more concrete sense of place within creating this art. And it's a really rewarding feeling. It's something that I don't really get a lot. Yeah, just a lot of questioning, but I feel like that's one of the few answers that I actually have is an existence within doing. And yeah, I find solace in that in a strange, sickening, negative way. And that's kind of what the record is laying on about. I feel like my internal sense of measurement for where I am as like an artistic individual is a little bit convoluted and maybe stupid to some. But, you know, when we were younger, I feel like, you know, we wrote and recorded Interstice when I was 18, and we put that record out, and I listened to it just over and over and over again. I loved it. I still love it. I have so much respect for it, especially for where we were. I know that at that time, I was distilling everything negative that I had into that record. It's just a matter of medium and how good you are as a sort of sculptor to perform these things. And obviously, you know, we grow as artists. We are better at subtractive creation, and we've definitely evolved a lot to get to where we are now. But I listened to that record so many times, and I grew to, in a personal way, hate it. And of course, like it's not a knock on the record. I'm so happy that people enjoy those things. I feel like every musician at some point maybe grows to detest their creation, but it's not in like an active disregard for what that creation is. It's in an eternal chase of betterment to convey the ideas that you've had all along. And so I grew to, we'll call it hating that record, even though of course I don't. And then creating the next thing, creating Metempiric was almost like trying to fix the things from the last record that I feel like did not properly convey the darkness that I wanted to on the first thing. And a similar thing happened with that record. I loved it. I loved it more than the first thing. Like I absolutely felt like we did better at those sorts of things. The period that I had where I was listening to it and loved it and just abused it was definitely longer than it was for the first record, and I still hold that record in such high regard. I think for like what it is and where we were genre-wise with like mixing grindcore with all of the other things that we do, which the band is absolutely, it's grindcore bones. Of course, you know, we're fusing like elements of black metal, like Disso Death, funeral shit, you know, whatever you want to call it, it's in there. But yeah, I'm still really happy with what we did with that record. And then with this next LP, of course, I'm still kind of in the throes of having conjured something like that. So maybe I'll look back on this in a year and just like think like, oh fuck, like that shit sucks. Like I feel completely differently now. But I almost don't view that as a possibility just because we recorded that LP in January. I still fucking love it. I think it's an amazing representation of where we were then and where it is now. And with Cam being in the band now, we've already like sort of wrote like another half of a record, and I love that. But it almost feels like a more lateral movement rather than like hating the thing so much last time that you're like in this sickly urge to like, fuck, I have to make something more accurate to my vision to prove myself. Now it's more so along the lines of being able to expand into things that I have wanted to do all along, but simply did not have the time space within, you know, a 40-minute LP to do so. It's an expansion on what we've already done. I don't hate the last thing. I definitely don't hate Metempiric or Interstice in like a real way, but the growth almost to me feels like growth and is very real as growth by knowing that I'm much more comfortable and find it very easy to believe in the thing that we last made. I'm super proud of it. I feel like as far as it comes to with like creating the visuals for the band and where I might be as like a graphic designer, which of course like Knoll is typically like a collaborative effort visually between me and like what other artist is willing to suffer through siphoning my thoughts into something that's actually tangible that you can look at. And there's very few of those people. To those who have done it, I appreciate you. I feel like I've just had more time to get away from doing the rigorous DIY aspects of the band and actually read and learn why things that look the way I like are the way that they are. And when you break out into the various specifics of those things, it's like, of course, I love film photography. It falls in line with like a lot of the antiquated aesthetics and philosophical ideals of the band. Obviously, it harkens back to these eras. I love film photography. I love things that are like kind of soaked in grain and obscure the human form in general as much as possible. I have this like weird internal feeling that if Knoll could just like perform as like Invisible Ghost or something, like almost at like 50% opacity, I would fucking love to do it. It'd be cool. But also like we're never going to be a masked band. That's just not really like who we are. I think Mac, who we were on tour with, Goddess War, he told me something it's definitely a quote from like another hardcore band that's on a shirt or something, but like war on stage, peace on earth. We are absolutely like humans, sapiens, fighting to get away from that platform and that element. But there is an inherent thing that you cannot escape, that you are tethered to that. And a lot of Knoll is the impossible urge to get away from it. It's a call and response. It's a battle, but I feel like to completely dispel the human element, albeit however distorted it might be. I don't know. I feel like that would be in disservice to that ideal that you are fighting that chain. So I like us to be there. I like the faces. But yeah, that's just been something that I feel like anybody who looks at like our photography that's on bullshit like social media or whatever, you might be able to pick up on, and it's some of the themes that are on the next record as well.
I feel like Ethan from Primitive Man, who does a lot of our art, and like maybe myself are some of the few people that have ever kind of understood like what I'm putting into the lyrics and what I want to get back out of it visually. So like Ethan, he's just such a good conduit. I handed him the masters for our most recent record recently, and like, I don't know, I haven't even seen the artwork yet, but I just know it's going to be fucking grotesque and nuts, and yeah, he's perfect. And then recently, I don't know, like, I've always liked the designs that we gotten from people, but I guess between like needing fucking money to pay people and also just like a kind of like, fuck it, I'll do it myself sort of thing, I picked up just like collaging shit from photography, and like kind of nuking it, and then also like a little bit of digital drawing, just to put together designs. I did 2 for this tour, and I'm really stoked on them. Like, I think like, I've done like 1 shirt design previously for Knoll, and those are the only 3 pieces of art that I've ever made in my entire life, but I think that they came out pretty cool. So, like, when it comes to like actual imagery representation and stuff, I'm always going for some sort of archaism and just trying to paint pictures with the songs, and hopefully the t-shirts or whatever, or the album art can kind of co-inspire that and build off of each other and build some kind of like visual world that makes sense with the music.
Yeah, I try to, like, everything that the band does, I feel like has to be in service to that ideal, and it's all the minute practical things. I don't give a shit what it is. Like, I probably put way too much effort into that sort of shit. It's like, it's how we speak, it's how I feel, it's the place that I put my brain in to do these things. It's also shit like the social media, which is just an unfortunate but necessary grievance of doing this kind of shit. You need it to survive. It's how the merch table looks. It's how the merch itself looks. What's on the designs. It can't be throwaway. It all has to be in service to the ideal that the band operates within, and that goes even deeper to like just who we are as people and how we carry ourselves. Of course, like when you're battling being a human being and doing this shit, which is not kind. Holy shit. When you're battling this shit, which is not kind to really like having a body. I don't know. There's only so far that you can take it. People got to have personal lives and whatnot. But yeah, as much as I can to put into the band, to any degree of self-sacrifice, I try to, and I will. In efforts to keep growing, I actually do kind of feel like that a lot of that harkens back to like the band being DIY and operating the way that it does. Before I jump into that, it's the philosophical aspect of it is an ultimate commitment to creating negative art and inhabiting negative ideal. And when you chain yourself to that, when you fully resign everything that you do to creating the art that best represents the ideas that you operate within, it makes everything easy. It makes the self-sacrifice easy. You almost don't even feel it. You can operate a day on tour subsisting off of only like Cliff Bars and like dried cranberries or whatever, and beer, I guess, and it doesn't faze you at all when you have total mental commitment. But also to keep growing and to keep going, it's different for every band. We're definitely like, we're a weird one to be asked about it, just because I don't know. We've been independent for so long. I've turned down a lot of record label deals. I feel comfortable talking about it because I have so much respect for the labels that we've talked to and like what they do and the kind of music that they foster. And I've gotten into a lot of music from exploring record label rosters, but we've turned down a lot of those things. It's almost like when you're so committed to doing this shit right, I don't want to give up control. I want to be the guy that like is still writing thank you notes when we ship out our records and whatnot. I want to make sure everything on the pressing goes right. God forbid, like we've had some funny experiences. The last record that we did, Met Empiric, that vinyl got to us so late, and that was definitely within the hands of the band. But you learn how to operate within that. There's a lot that you can grow into learning how to operate this shit on like a DIY ethos. And the band basically like is doing its own record label. It just doesn't have a name. It's an apparition of sorts. It operates within the overarching conglomerate of being in a grindcore band, which is everybody's sharing the same $5 or whatever. But Yeah, I think just keeping it real, keeping it low key, and emphasizing longevity and like taking care of yourselves and like not being unbelievably financially irresponsible with like I'm not going to preach on some straight edge shit or whatever, believe what you want to believe, but like, you know, not wasting your money on like takeout food or drugs every day, and like being smart about where you sleep and how you take care of yourselves, and having a lot of love and respect for one another within a band is super fucking important, because all of you guys are committed to the same shit, and if you don't take care of the vessel that carries you to do the art, then you're fucked. And Knoll has always been about that. There's a lot of trust and bond within the group, and I think that, and again the commitment to the ideal, just kind of keeps us going through whatever obstacle that we may encounter, and that shit changes all the fucking time, but we're definitely malleable, and yeah, we can tackle it. So oh my god, that's a really good question. Dude, I want to start off by just saying, like, a lot of the reason that I feel this way and have had the experiences that I've had that have molded me is straight up chalk to Roadburn Fest in the Netherlands. I got to go there for 4 days and like hang around all of the people that I've listened to for years for 4 days straight, and it was just mind-boggling and definitely altered me. And yeah, man, I feel like it's almost not really advice that has carried me. Of course, like I refer to my friends and like my mentors all the time for like practical, nuanced shit to ask them, because they have so much wisdom. But it's the affirmation that has really done it for me, and helps enable me to keep doing the thing that I'm doing, and to be able to reach out to someone that is in like the same world as you and has gone through the same shit that you're going through, but like 10 years ago, and for them to tell you to just keep doing what you're doing, is like really all the advice that I could ever need. If you have sort of like an armor in your heart, from someone that you like look up to, that you have a strong head on your shoulders, and just to keep using it, and I don't know, yeah, just keep good ethics in mind, it'll get you really far. And I like to think that that's like what it's done for me. Of course, if we do actually want to break into like some real shit advice, kind of goes back to what I was like saying earlier. Don't fucking lose your mind doing drugs or like pushing your body way too fucking hard. Longevity is key. A band can burn bright and get blown away really, really fucking fast by getting wrapped up in shit that doesn't fucking matter. Everything that you do is in service of the art. And if you're getting away from that shit and you're pleasing yourself too much, you're in it for the wrong reasons. Keep away from it.
That's disciplined mentality.
I mean, like, I will say, touring is super fucking fun. Being in a band can be really fun. You can kind of preach about self-sacrifice, again, in service of the art, whatever. But if you're doing things correctly and you're doing things for longevity, the act of going for these accomplishments in and of itself should be the most rewarding thing that will ever happen to you. It's like an ultimate mental fortitude, to be able to do the thing that you are doing and not die doing it. That's like, to me, that's what matters. And that makes it so fucking fun. I love being in a band. I don't really care how hard it can end up. But it's also like it can be really fucking fun. You can stay in a hotel room and watch whatever TV you want sometimes. That shit's pretty cool. Sometimes people make you nice vegan food and they bring it to you. We were in Portland and somebody anonymously gifted us so many donuts. That shit is sick. Very, very good, very physical, tangible treat on top of all of the mental ones.
Yeah, I mean, like, doing it DIY is just like, I don't know, Knoll has kind of always been after doing it like the long game, you know, rather than like signing to a label and maybe getting like a shittier deal, but getting like an immediate like popularity boost or whatever from that kind of publicity. We've always definitely just wanted to like, you know, have our hand in it and do it the way that we wanted to, and like let it grow on its own without needing to get anybody else involved. So, but like the way that it's taken off after just like 1.5 tours is fucking ridiculous. Like you know, most of us dropped out of college to do it and like have quit jobs and shit, and you know, we're just always busy, which is so cool because I know music is all that any of us really want to do. So being able to be occupied all the time is fucking awesome. Getting like tour opportunities and just like putting out a couple records has like kind of taken us all by storm. In terms of longevity, like I feel like I'm always just kind of after, you know, putting out a shit ton of records, doing a shit ton of touring, and like traveling is always a really fucking cool thing to be able to do. I can't wait to take this band to Europe and Japan, you know. Just, yeah, putting out a lot of music and occupying a lot of different soundscapes, and, you know, not necessarily being a band that one can like pin down to a super specific niche, but, you know, hopping around and just always evolving, you know. I don't ever want to stagnate. I want to put out shit that's interesting and extreme and conveys the emotions that we want to convey.